Welcome in, Believe in Commanders podcast. Scott Jackson and Anthony Armstrong on a Victory Monday. Anthony, the best kind of Mondays as the Commanders beat the hated Giants 21-6 on a day, you know what? I don't even know if they had their big game, Anthony, but it was still plenty to get a W. Oh, I like that. New graphics at Anthony's house. 1-0.
Yeah, he said updated the sign. Washington 1-0. We're high level over here. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe so you can see what I update the chalkboard to every single episode every week as this season rolls along. I'm sure it won't always be the record, but make sure y'all stick around with us, man. I can tell you, looking at that game, I was thinking about it earlier today. It's one of those ones where you're happy with the W. But it's one of those things where I don't want them to just rest on their laurels, okay? Yeah, hey, we got to win. Cool, we're good to go. Let's keep rocking. No. You got a really good team coming up on Thursday, and you have a lot to fix on a short time period. So you're not going to get all of it fixed, but I want to see how these guys bounce back, how they recover, and they show up against Green Bay.
I agree. Of course, Believe in Commanders, part of the Believe Network, brought to you by FanDuel. Please like, follow, and comment on the programs as we go along in each and every episode here. I think the tone from Dan Quinn certainly was that. I mean, he was not pleased with a lot of things. He talked about the penalties in particular, really bothering him. Also, just again, hearing Jayden Daniels admit that, they missed a lot of stuff, right? During this game as well was encouraging.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some drops early. I thought he also missed McLaurin. McLaurin was open. If he puts it a little bit less out there, I think that's 6 or close to it. It's a big play. But at the same time, I mean, every time they needed a play to extend a drive, they seemed to be able to get it from him, whether he's running or, putting it out there to Ertz or, whoever. Deebo really was excellent yesterday. But there was just a lot of things to like from that standpoint. I think maybe he was a little bit, Anthony, too comfortable in the pocket, which is wild thinking about with his Giants front we had pumped up all off season, but he almost seemed too comfortable with his protection because, I think 2 of the 3 sacks are certainly on him, and he pointed himself a couple times when he kind of was drifting. But that just kind of tells you, I think, maybe the athletic arrogance that he has a little bit and the trust he has in that offensive line of his as well at this point, and wanting to give guys, a chance to get open and on the other side too.
I'm with you on that with the confidence and with the relaxation in the pocket. I think he was very comfortable, and I think that was affecting him to being late on some throws because everybody else's adrenaline was up. I mean, on that first drive, he was behind on the throw to Zach Ertz. He was behind on the throw to Deebo Samuel out there to the right. And fortunately, it wasn't intercepted. So there's a lot of meat on the bone that can be fixed. And I think with just a little bit of processing speed, and then I'm not saying he's not a fast processor, he's seeing things that these are new for the season, and so he's probably just a little tick slower, and he'll pick that up. He'll be a little bit faster next week. Really, frankly, in what is it? It's Monday now. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. In 3 days, he will be up to speed. And frankly, he had to speed up because he's got Micah Parsons to deal with if he doesn't speed things up a little bit.
Well, what I loved is they dominated both sides of the ball in terms of line of scrimmage, right? I mean, they pushed the Giants around running the football, whether it was Eckler, whether it was Bill. At the end, boy, Jeremy McNichols, did he close that game out or what? It comes in, those 3 carries were just were huge, just moving the chains, and just ending the whole thing, and so they could get in the kneel down situation. So I like that from them. And, defensively, I mean, Ken Law immediately made a play, first play of the game. He's in the backfield. He was disruptive the whole game. Obviously, Daron Payne looked great. He was disruptive. We've talked so much about Dorrance Armstrong and Daron Payne in the preseason, and both of them really flashed in that football game. Were forces of nature. So that was really good to see. And that secondary, I mean, they did an awesome job on Malik Neighbors, right? I mean, whether they were doubling him or singling him, they mixed the coverages up. They had a plan to take Malik Neighbors away from the game and make Russell Wilson go other places, which he did, but he was not comfortable. I mean, you could tell as the game went on, he was rattled. He was backing up. He was speeding his clock up. So I think, again, you can clean up these other things. These are correctable mistakes, but the way they flew around the ball and the way they, manhandled the Giants' lines of scrimmage, I think were the things. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. Because this is where they put the money of the offseason, right? offensive
Oh
line,
yeah, that
defensive line. That's
defensive
where the money was
line.
spent. Dedrick Wise was great too. Yeah, your guy Dedrick Wise was great too.
Yeah, that defensive line. Yeah, Dietrich Wise was playing his tail off. The hands to the face, bad penalty in my eyes. The
Yeah,
guy I added it up between Dietrich Wise, Deron Payne, Javon Kinlaw, and then Dorrance Armstrong. With Dorrance Armstrong being the smallest of the four, that's over 1,100 pounds of, program weight
yes,
on these guys as they show up, and they're all 6'4" and 6'5". These are huge human beings. It is like Butterbean going up against George Foreman every single play. And like yesterday, the Commanders came out on top a lot more. I'm excited to look at the all 22 and just to see how they were able to just run around there, maul and push their way to get to the quarterback. One thing that was beautiful, I was talking about how you're going to handle the rush lane integrity and things of that nature. They just compressed everything. They were able to compress
yeah,
from the outside in, and you could see Russell was just trying to navigate. He's like, I don't know which way to go. He found his way out a couple of times, but when you see
yeah.
just 2,000 pounds of people pushing towards you, it's probably a little scary. It's probably a little worrisome.
Yeah. And like we said, tough turnaround, quick turnaround. Play a physical division opponent who normally gives you a hard time, but you win going away a little bit. You had some breathing room. Heck, it could have been a lot bigger of a win, but you still had
Yeah.
breathing room. I mean, keeping the Giants out of the end zone. First time they've done that, at home since 2000. I mean, 25 years we're talking about. I mean, that's insane to think about. So that's the kind of performance it was defensively. And now you get this short week and you go up a weight class. I mean, I think we can see that the Packers are better, but the Packers also, even though they're at home, they played the later game. They played the Lions. There was that stat in the last couple seasons. If you play the Lions the week before, you're usually taking an L. I mean, the teams that play the Lions really struggle the following week. Now, yesterday, I don't know if we got the same version of the Lions we've seen for the last 2 years, but I think they probably took some guys with them a little bit yesterday with the way they play. But anyway, all that being said, I'm excited. I mean, we've seen this team in this young era of Jayden Daniels really perform under the bright lights in these big games. So I would expect the things that they're frustrated about yesterday will be cleaned up in time for the Thursday night kickoff. We don't hear you, Anthony. What happened?
Oh, my bad. I'm over here playing rookie moves.
Yeah, your mic
You
was off. I don't know
mentioned
what happened. I was like, wait a minute,
I
where is he?
was I was on mute, so I apologize. But going to check into the same game 4-way parlay that I had over there on FanDuel. It was Jayden Daniels to throw for over 200 yards. You put a check mark by that. He finished with 233. But you mentioned no touchdowns allowed by the defense means Malik Neighbors did not get any time touchdown.
That's right.
Deebo Samuel's got his. Deebo got his, but we also did not get the 50 yards from Terry McLaurin. So you got to talk on that. And I mentioned the caveat to that bet, to that play, was the fact that the last three matchups, Terry hadn't had more than 43 yards.
Right.
So to ask him to get 50 in that parlay was going to make it a little rough. He finished with 2 for 27 on 4 targets for the day. Does that have you concerned at all, or what are your thoughts? You think it's maybe just the rotation? How are you feeling about Terry McLaurin, his performance on Sunday?
Well, he played a lot of snaps. I did see that today. It wasn't like he was on a 20, on 20 snaps or anything. Like he played most of the snaps for offense. That there was 2 other balls that you mentioned. The one he did catch, it was incorrectly called in the field. They went to replay. The replay can't correct it because it's not a conclusive evidence, blah, 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 because our dummies on the field got it wrong. The other one, the deep shot, I mean, again, it's on the quarterback. The quarterback, he knew it. He tapped himself in the chest. Terry ran a great route. You saw it. I mean, you're the receiver. You tell me, is that like exactly what he needed to do? Did he, in any way, do you
Yeah.
feel like he was
Yeah, that was
slower on that
something
route? It seemed like he cooked the
they
guy pretty
had
good off
set
the
up.
line.
Yeah, it was something they were
I mean, he
playing
looked like
off,
he
but he
cooked.
knew that they were gonna play off coverage on him all day, And when he ran up there on that go route, he gave him a little stick at the top, which made the DB think he was going to run an in route, and that was able to get him around on the outside. Terry did kind of fade to the sideline, and textbook stuff. You would say, "Hey, get straight back up down that red line where your shoulders are square." But frankly, the ball landed about 5 yards in front of him, so that's just a
Yeah.
little bit too far. And that goes back to like where Jayden was at in the game. Was he a little bit too comfortable? He was feeling like,
Right.
oh, this is a layup. You know what I mean? I know, Scott, you probably had a jumper back in the day.
That's
So you
right.
get out in the gym and you're shooting
Right.
half court
Well,
shots like it's easy.
100%.
So that's what I mean, little something with Jayden.
Same
That's what
thing. Yeah.
y'all have in common.
Yeah, it just it was unfortunate, but yeah, I mean, look, as you mentioned, he hasn't always had the biggest games against the Giants. It wasn't like because they didn't get the ball to Terry, they weren't moving the ball because they were moving the ball great with Deebo, Ertz, obviously, the running game. He found other people. He found Noah Brown early in the game quite a few times. Didn't really see Noah much in the second half. Saw a little bit more Jalen Lane on the field. Was interesting to see Chris Moore makes the longest catch of the day. Here's a guy who in training camp and in the preseason we're like, man, this Chris Moore gets open all the time, but he can't finish the play. Here he goes. That is a dime Jayden throws to him on the rollout, right on the sideline. Moore does a great job tapping the toes to get it in. And that's one of the big plays on the first scoring drive. So that was cool. And this is what Jayden did last year, right? He'd spread the ball. We'd leave games, go, wow, 7, 8 guys, get receptions or get targets, what have you. And yesterday was a little bit more of that. And you remember, it took till week 3 a season ago for Terry to have his big breakout game, and that was the game against Cincinnati on Monday Night Football because they lost obviously in Tampa. He didn't do much in that game. Nobody did, frankly. The game against the Giants, the win with the
Yeah.
7 field goals, he wasn't that involved. And the whole talk was, well, what's going on with Kingsbury's offense? What's this guy's problem? Why doesn't he get Terry the ball? And then, of course, the next game, Terry, blows up. So, yeah, I'm not worried about it. Again, Deebo showed me, to be honest with you, I knew Deebo, the gadget guy, still had it, from San Francisco, but I hadn't seen him run routes like that. I mean, you talked to me about that. What did you see from him as a route runner? Because that was really good, it seemed to me.
Yeah, Deebo was really performing. He was showing you who he was, and the fact that he was fast on some of those routes early let me know that his speed was really up there. So Deebo was letting me know that he still got that full repertoire of moves. I'm going to break that down. We'll get that stuff posted later on. But Deebo lets me also know that he did check all the boxes and how we expected him to be used on some of the quick screens at reverse later on. They set that motion up a lot with earlier in the day with that motion across and bubbling back around to the backside. So they finally handed it off to him late, and it ended up being the nail in the coffin. That's the saying, right? You got to shut the door and finish things because, frankly, you mentioned it got a little squirrely in the middle,
Yeah.
and this goes to that run game. They got away from it kind of in that third quarter period. In that third quarter, they got away from the run, I felt, and they got back to it with Deebo, and he brought that firepower that they needed. So I'm loving what he's bringing so far in this first week. But ultimately, with the offense, you don't know what everybody else is going to do on defense. Everybody is scouting off of
Sure.
old tape, and then they're just going to roll out there and just kind of be safe. Then you have to roll into the different tendencies. You know what I'm saying? So the data that's out there on you, it can be good data or bad data, and all those teams have one space to go get it, like a data broker. And data brokers, they're out here in the real world, affecting people like you and me, Scott. Data brokers are out there to make a profit off of your data, and your data is a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. It's sad to say, and this can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. What do the brokers do? You're going to use your name, contact information, social security number, home address, and even information about your family members. It could all be compiled and sold online in a package. And I know I'm using Delete Me to help clean up my personal data that's out there. Got a big report, and they're saying that they're going to knock those things out and work their way through them and help get those removed. And there's some work that I got to do on my end. So it's not just one of those sit back and say, what is it? Set it and forget it. That's not what this is. You got to do a little bit of work on your end on some points, but I want you to take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, Get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting PRO, PRO, to 64,000. The only way to get 20% off is to text PRO to 64000. That's PRO to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. All right. You got bad data? You got bad
Very
stuff on
good.
tape?
Very good. I
I'm going
like
to tell you
that.
they're going to come back and look at it. I want to say this, though, with the bad data, if you put something on tape, I say that because of another position group, but not for what he did at his position group, looking at special teams. Right? I want to kind of pivot over there, that other part of the game that a lot of time gets overlooked, the partial pop punt block. You saw that play. That had me a little worried because those are the type of plays that help momentum turn, especially in these rivalry matchups. And frankly, the pressure off of the left side on the left wing was on Ben Sinnott, and it was Abdul Carter. He got his hand on the block, and that's something that's going to happen again and again. So it needs to get cleaned up before Thursday because it's a short week. You don't got a lot of time. So I'm interested to see if there's going to be a change at that position. But overall, outside of Sinnott on special teams, tight end position, what do you think of their performance?
Well, I thought, let me just go back to teams real quick. Nick Bellore was awesome on teams. I mean, he was decapitating people in coverage. I thought overall the coverage outside of that block punt was pretty good, pretty solid from the Commanders. And, you know, they got some pretty good returns too. You know, McCaffrey had a really good kickoff return. I thought you saw good returns from him, and also you know, Jalen Lane had a nice job. You know, did a nice job too with a couple of the opportunities he got, and he was very sure-handed. More importantly, remember last year for a while, Zacchaeus was doing punts, and he was like bobbling the punts, and it was a little sketchy back there until Crowder came along. So that was good to see. But yeah, I mean, the tight ends. I mean, Ertz did what he did. He had one drop, he had a penalty, but then he scores a touchdown, and then he has another great catch later in the game. I mean, he was he's always Jayden's guy. If he needs somebody in the middle of the field, he gave you that. You really didn't see much from Colson Yankoff or Sinnott in terms of the offensive side of it. Obviously, Yankoff's a big special teams contributor. But, yeah, I mean, as long as Ertz is out there, I feel good about it. But, you know, at some point, you know, you would like to see Sinnott get some reps and be able to make some plays so they have that other tight end option. I mean, you see last night in that Buffalo game against the Ravens, you know, certainly they got their guy, you know, Kincaid, but then they've also got Dawson Knox. And then they threw to like the third tight end, made like the biggest play of the night, who I didn't even know who is the blocking tight end, right? That got downfield. Was great. And you know, for the Commander side of it, John Bates blocking is incredible. I mean, John Bates was a big part of the big Krosky Merritt run, right? Like the way he comes back and takes that end on. I think the end of the linebacker he's hitting. So that was really cool to see too. And Jalen Lane, by the way, downfield blocking on that Krosky Merritt run was great to see from the rookie.
It takes everybody to do that. John Bates was blocking his behind off. That run, he kind of feinted the end Brian Burns, and that left him outside, and that allowed enough time for that counteraction to happen, and then he ended up fitting up on that linebacker. It was beautiful. Oh, I mean, I could just hear the NFL films. You know, Steve Sable breaking that one down right there. Here's an old school football run, baby. That was good to see. Tight end position, I love seeing what I got what I loved what I saw from John Bates. There we go. There we can get the words out. Let's move over to offensive line. We talked about the power on the line and controlling the line of scrimmage. Laramie Tunsil, he had a holding penalty, but overall, I think he played pretty clean. Josh Connerly, he drew the short straw. There was no reps off for that one. You know what I mean? There were no reps off. Kind of a rough start, but frankly, you're going up against some of the best pass rushers in the league. So,
Brian
in
Burns,
my opinion,
no joke, man.
don't even trip, man. Don't even trip. Short week. You're going to see Micah Parsons. So, frankly, Josh Connerly is going to see probably four of the top 10 pass rushers in the NFL here in the first 2 weeks in a matter of 4 days. You know what I mean?
He's going to get Max Crosby the following week after Micah. You're right about that. You know that's the matchup they're going to look for because they're not going to mess with Tunsil. But I'll say this. Did you hear, because I didn't, outside of the opening lineups, Dexter Lawrence's name mentioned?
No. I honestly didn't think he was playing. And then I saw him on the field talking to Jayden.
Biadasz owns him, man. Biadasz has had some really good matchups against him going back to Dallas, and Sunday was no different. That's great because without Cosme, Sam Cosme next to you, you don't know how that's going to go. Algretti was good. Chris Paul was good. So I mean, they got to be really pumped up about the way those guards and obviously they know what they're getting from Tyler Biotish. We saw the difference when he was in versus when he was out last year. So he is such an important piece to what they do. And again, Dexter Lawrence was like he was the invisible man, and that's huge.
When you can control the line of scrimmage like that, keep your quarterback upright for the most part, especially with 97, because he'll ruin your picnic, right? He'll come up there and take your whole
100%.
picnic basket. That big bear right there. Let's bump back. I'm gonna skip past the linebackers. I think they played well, but I think the defensive line really took all of the accolades.
By the
But
way,
the
I meant to say,
secondary,
sorry, I said Chris Paul.
we
By the way, I
mentioned
said
it
Chris
earlier,
Paul. I
kind of
meant to
how
say
they
Brandon
did.
Coleman. I meant to say Brandon Coleman, not Chris Paul. My bad. Brandon Coleman at guard, not Chris. Brandon
Okay,
Coleman.
good catch.
Yeah, my bad.
Good catch. I was thinking, damn, Chris Paul got in there at some
No,
point.
it's Brandon
Yeah,
Coleman.
but
My bad. Yeah,
okay,
Brandon
cool. I was
Coleman, of
like,
course, who
shoot,
was a
Chris.
tackle, who was playing tackle last year, kicked in this year, and has done a very nice job. But I mean, again, Dex, he's part of that too with Biotish, but Biotish is really the main guy there. Him and they did a good job keeping that guy's name off the stat sheet yesterday, and you got to give him and again Algretti and Coleman and obviously Biotish all the credit in the world for that.
Ooh, but I'll go back to the defensive line. We kind of jumping everywhere, but that's fine.
Sure, yeah,
Because I thought about this one. There was a sequence in there where Von Miller's just his essence affected the play.
yeah,
There was like a third down. I think it was a 2 or 3 play sequence in there. There was like a third down, and then there was a false start on the right tackle, and it was just Von Miller lined up across from him. And then they pushed them back to 5 yards. So it was like 3rd and 3. He false starts. He gets pushed back. And then the next play, I think they threw it to the back underneath, and then Jeremy Reeves smacked him, and the ball came out. Like, it was a great sequence where just having Von Miller on the field makes your team that much better. You know what I mean? Like, and to
yeah,
think all game you've been dealing with 255, 280, and then here comes Von Miller. Like, it's body blow, body blow, body blow, body blow, and here comes spin and rip, getting off the
yeah,
edge. That's unfair, and I'm glad we're
yeah.
on this side of it. I really am.
I liked it, and I tell you what, that back end, we knew the corners were going to be better with Amos, and also obviously, with what you got from Sanderstill last year, and of course the healthy Lattimore. But what about Will Harris, the safety? I mean, I think Will Harris at the safety position showed you why maybe they weren't afraid to let Jeremy Reeves go, and they feel like they could replace him.
Will Harris, 4 total tackles, 3 solo tackles, and a lot of physicality. That man right there is looking for contact. He is showing up angry. What Joe Witt say? Showing up violently, arrive violently.
Yeah,
That's what he did, and I can see why he's back there. Definitely a tone setter, and one of those guys that makes it where the receivers kind of got to make a decision. Do I really want to go over there
yeah,
or not? Do I really want to extend
right.
my hands over my head to make this catch or not? Because I'm going to have to feel it if I get hit. But you talk about secondary though. You want to know who's going to be really good, and they've said it all camp, and I haven't seen him play. Trey
Right.
Amos,
Yeah.
his trigger's so fast. Oh my, he's going to be really good, really really good.
No, he was impressive at the times where he was isolated with neighbors. We saw a lot of good looks on that. And this goes without saying, but Bobby Wagner, man, still got it. Just such a smart player, and is always in the play. There was also a play where it looked like they've got a fumble and an opportunity to get on the ball. They called it incomplete, but he was right there on the ball when Tracy fumbled. They called it incomplete, but yeah, I mean, again, having him out there, he sets everybody up. His life is easier with Ken Law and Deron Payne playing like that, and Wise on that line. I mean, he's getting a lot cleaner looks than he did last season. I can bet that this year. That's got to be exciting for him with that rotation of big guys. And Eddie Goldman had some good reps yesterday too when he was in there for run situations.
That's true. I mean, I saw a couple of the reps they were showing from the tight view on some folks breaking down tape. And these guys are so big that when they get double teamed, you can't see the lineman blocking them. Like you see one guy's engulfed, and then there's other little lineman on the other side trying to control them as well. These are gigantic people, and I'm glad that they made a concerted effort to increase the size of the people in the front of the line of scrimmage, because they're going to need it late in this season, especially with Philly. And this upcoming week, you got
Yeah.
Green Bay, so they're going to need it this week. They need it every single week. 3.5-point dogs on the road. It is on the road, right? Up there in Green Bay,
Oh, yeah. It's
Lambeau
at
Field.
Lambeau, legendary Lambeau, yep. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
so you're going up there.
what worries
Uh,
you about the Packers? I mean, we didn't see really yeah, what worries you about the Packers?
I mean, ultimately, now you got to put number one on your board. You got to circle him and make sure that he's tracked by
Sure.
everybody, and then he's identified and learn how to pass off the blocks, because he's gonna ruin. He can ruin your day. He can ruin your day. But fortunately, I think that this team, the coaching staff, they know who Micah Parsons is, and they're gonna figure out how to slow him down. But what worries me is the fact that, I mean, Green Bay is a good team. Green Bay is a good team, and are you going to be able? What worries me is all in the Commanders' building. Are you going to be able to address the shortcomings on a short week? Usually you have a whole week to go and look at the
Yeah,
tape and then fix it. But
true.
hey, man, you don't have that much time, right? By the time you fix it, I'm also
Yeah,
going to give you the new game plan for this upcoming week. And the good thing, it's a short week, so they don't have to learn a lot of new things. There's not a lot of scouting that's going to be done. They may find one or two plays, but Detroit didn't have a lot of success. So it's not like you can just take somebody else's plays and then apply it to your own playbook in this situation. So my issue, or not my issue, but my question is, how do you bounce back on a short week from the flaws that you had in this game?
yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Again, they dealt with some short weeks last year. The one was tough to kind of evaluate because it was late in the year in November against the Eagles, and Jayden obviously was dealing with his ribs at that point, and they didn't have their best game. But again, I think like you said, I think it sets up. I'd rather have it in week 2 than in week 12 or 13. I would rather get it done early when you've had an off season to kind of plan it in. They got a lot of guys in the field yesterday. They had a big rotation on the D line. And even the running back. So I think that helps the receivers as well. So I'm looking forward to from teeing it up on Thursday, and we'll talk more about the game a little bit later in the week, although not that much later because it's almost that time. But again, Believe in Commanders podcast, part of the Believe Network, brought to you by FanDuel. Again, 3.5 for the Pack. And we'll see a little bit more about that if there's any movement throughout the week. All right, for Anthony Armstrong, Scott Jackson saying so long. Everybody enjoy your victory Monday. You have earned it, as the Commanders are 1-0 and getting ready for a big one on Thursday. We'll preview that later this week here on Believe in Commanders.